Now we're going to talk about something a little bit more advanced, some embellishments that we've added to our rig and that we've had to add to the script in order to accommodate. Before we get started, honest God true story. Remember how I was talking about those little procs and how you want to encapsulate them as little procs, so when you accidentally make a mistake that you only have to fix it in one place. Funny thing, when I actually tried to use the IKFK switch, the friggin' thing blew apart. I was like, what the friggin' hell? And I went back, and what happened is it was actually written like so for both the copy translate and the copy rotate. So I was getting world space coordinates, but I was posting them locally, and so as you can imagine, I was not getting the effect that I wanted. But since they were all calling these functions, I fixed it here for the translate, I fixed it here for the rotate, and now it seems to be all better now. So that is good. So just goes to show you that it really illustrates the point of what I was trying to say, because it happened like 3 seconds ago. So okay, so we got our IK-FK arm here. Now you'll notice that the IK controller is affecting the way the wrist is moving. And this FK control really isn't doing anything. Now if I come here and turn the IK wrist off, then it's getting rotations from, turn meshes off, from the FK control and not the IK. So why do we have this set up? Well, in traditional IKFK switching, or IKFK rigs, the IK controller is just a translate, and it never does affect the rotate. But then for the animator to pose the arm, they're having to switch between translate and rotate. They're having to switch between two different controls, and that's not a very good workflow. So they asked if we can have it where when they're in IK, the IK controller can control the rotation of the wrist as well as the position of the IK handle. And I said, yeah, sure, that's easy enough to do. Problem being is that since this is floating around in world space, whereas this one is local to this joint, this controller is far more likely to hit gimbal rotations and gimbal lock. Basically what happens in certain situations is that you come in here with your gimbal control, and I'm not going to go into too much detail because it's a little bit beyond the scope of this this class, but you can get situations where the rotation becomes somewhat arbitrary. And of course I'm not getting it to do it now, but honest to God true story, we were working on a rig like this that didn't have the IK wrist in Silent Hill, and the character would reach over and it would hit a spot where it would gimbal, and you know, because really what's the difference between minus 180 degrees and a positive 180 degrees? Well, nothing really. Mathematically it's the same spot on the circle, and so it would kind of snap between here and here kind of thing, and you know that caused some real problems on how to solve that solution, how to solve for that shot. So what I added is this feature of being able to blend in and out to your FK wrist, so that way if you hit gimbal lock, well then you can go back to your own old standby here and do it in FK. Because all these rotations are local to this. This is really hard to get get into that kind of gimbal situation. So let's zero this out. The problem is that when we're switching from IK to FK, we have to take this into account, because now we have this other little bit that is got to follow along. So how do we have that set up? This is serving as our IK FK switch marker for the controller, so it doesn't have a separate marker. So let's take a look at the code that handles this IK-FK switching. And there's that proc that I said that we were going to cover later, which handles the bulk of it right there. And I'll come through and find it. Turn IK controls. Update the pull vector. Update FK wrist. So this little proc is going to take care of that extra little bit for us. Now, there's really one assumption being made, and that is the name of the command, or name of the attribute is IK wrist. I believe I made that convention. So your IK control, it's going to find that FK wrist through the IK switch marker. So we're making that assumption as well, that your IK switch marker is your FK wrist. And that becomes your FK hand. Then we're going to get the rotations from that and paste it onto here. And this would also be another one of those situations where I should have done that copy rotate. So let's fix that. There's your copy rotation right there. That's really what the end of that procedure is doing. And you have to forgive me a little bit, because remember, I wrote this script originally like 5 years ago, so I'm constantly going back through and cleaning up things that I could have done better in retrospect. And this would be one of those situations. So we're going to paste that right there. And it is going to go that's the target, that's where it's going to, and this is where it's coming from. And there we go. See, and again, notice how that has world space there and world space there. That was not originally in a proc, and it was causing me problems. So imagine if I just copied and pasted that code everywhere. This would be another situation where I'd be pulling my hair because I can't figure out why it's not working, because instead of calling this proc, I wrote it in manually and I forgot to fix it there. You see where that's going. Okay, so that pretty much handles the matching our FK wrist to our IK when we switch from IK to FK. Now if you come up here to your FK control transforms, now this is the one where it's resetting all your FK. What it basically does is we got this last little command here at the bottom that says if the IK wrist attribute exists and it equals 1, and we have the IK switch marker, so that's a lot of assumptions. Basically we have 3. That we have, well, 2 assumptions and then 1 condition. We're checking to see if the IK wrist attribute exists. If it doesn't, it's not going to find this. So that's one assumption that we have to make. That's one given. The second is that it doubles as your IK switch marker. So that's 2 conditions. And then the last part is it basically checks to see if it's actually on. If it's on, then it calls the update FK wrist control. And that's it. That is how we have modified our script to handle handle that. So notice that if we turn it off, basically we're saying we want our FK script, our FK control to be dominant. And so then if we run, and that's not really a good example, let's make it like that. So now with the IK wrist off, if we run the script, we are in FK, but the hand did not update. And if we turn, let me do it by switching. Yeah. So now if we switch again, now it is updating. Well, voila. And that's it for that. In the next video, in the last video, we're going to show you something really mondo bizarre. Yeah, not that bizarre, but something that is definitely not your standard arm or leg. And then we'll talk about how we managed to get how we extended the functionality of the script to get that to work as well.